Okay, we are right at the top of Tav Ches Amud Aleph, and we learned that if there's a relationship between the dayan and any one of the candidates, any one of the Baalei Din, whether it's in a relationship that wants to make him favor the person, or whether it's a relationship that will make him want to have a dafka not favor the person, if he had a good experience with the guy or a bad experience with the guy, either way, the dayan should recuse himself. And the Gemara ended up bringing a story where somebody, a Baldin, walked up to Rav and told her, "I remember you stayed by my house. I took care of you." So Rav says, "Oh, thank you very much. You just gave me a way out. I'm able to recuse myself from the case. My Talmud Rav Kahana will paskin for you." And this guy was, the Baldin kept on like throwing in Rav Kahana's face, "I'm buddies with Rav. I'm buddies with your Rebbe." Rav Kahana told him, either back down and listen to what I'm telling you and not try to push me around, or I will put you in chayrim. And the expression that Rav Kahana used to say, "I'm going to put you in chayrim," is, "I'll pull Rav out of your ear." They used pretty tough lashonis in those days. Okay, so now the Gemara is darshaning a pasuk. So let's look at the pasuk. There's a pasuk in Devarim. It says, "Lo shakiru panim b'mishpat." The Gemara is going to chew through this pasuk. So we need to really remember it. Lo shakiru panim b'mishpat. Moshe is instructing Klal Yisrael, don't show favor the mishpat. Kakata and kagadol tishmon. Give an equal ear to a small as you are to a large person. Loi sagu v'pneish. Don't be afraid of anybody, but we already dashed. Don't withhold anything. Ki mishpat lelekim. Mishpat belongs to Rebbeinu Shloim, and that's why you should make sure not to ruin the din, because it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu you're downing on. But don't say, I'm going to back. I don't want to paskin at all, because as long as you paskin properly based on the information given to you, Va'davar asher yikshem mikem, Moshe told the Yodim, and if it's too hard for you, takrivin alai, bring it to me. Ushmatev, I'll already tell you. The word Ushmatev, we're going to focus on what it means, but Moshe seemed to have been a little bit cocky, maybe, saying, "If it's too tough for you, bring it to me. I'll help you figure it out." So the Gemara is going to dash in these psukim. So the Gemara starts with Kakatoin Kagadol Tishmon. Amar Shlokish Shechaviv Alecha Din Shal Pruta Kedin Shal Meya. You should treat a din Torah that's about millions of dollars the same way you treat a din Torah that's a couple of pennies. Or actually, I should really flip that around. You should give the same respect and focus to a din Torah that is about a couple of pennies, because to those people it's very important, as you would to a very large din Torah. So Lagabi, what do you need to treat them equally? Lamai Hilchasa. If it's to put the same focus in it, to understand its details, its nuances, to make sure your psak is precise, pshita, right? We learned just yesterday that if you have to split up a bayis and an aliyah, or a tanner and a kirayim, you can't say, "Oh, big deal, they're both similar in value." You have to really get an exact appraisal down to the penny and make sure that everything is perfectly equalized, even though you might think it's not worth it. So that's not what the chiddush here is. Kakot and kagodol tishmon. So what is the Torah telling us? Elulak dume, meaning Zokdi Rashi on the fourth line from the top. Lakdume imba lefanecha din shal pruta v'chazaru ba din acha shalmona. Imagine two people are in the waiting room. The first person is there about a din Torah of $100, and the second one is there about a din Torah of $1 million. Don't say, "This is the more important din Torah. I'm going to deal with this first, and I'll deal with you later." Hakodim lefanecha haktim lachtim. You should process the person who arrived first. It's first come, first serve. This is not a Rebbe's court. This is a bezdin. In a bezdin, it's first come, first serve. So the question is, why is that a chiddush? Why is that a chiddush? Of course, you need to treat each case equally. So the Maharsha elaborates a little bit, and he says that a dayan, although he doesn't get paid, he's entitled to poil bottle. He's entitled to get paid minimum wage of what someone would be willing to be paid, not to have to do his regular job. So if he has a really hard job, it doesn't take much. So if it's an entire about a pruta, there won't be enough to pay him. So maybe he has a right to say, first let me paskin on the entire where there'll be money for me so I can get paid, and then I'll do the freebie. Then I'll do the one, what's it called when a lawyer represents you, pro bono. Then I'll do the pro bono one. So even that took the Torah you're not allowed to do. So we're talking about the Rebbe's court. How in the Rebbe's court it's not necessarily first come first serve. It has to do if you have cufflinks on, if you were in cologne. These are different factors that help get you into the Rebbe faster because I think you have more money to give the Rebbe. I'm going to tell you a story with the Tosher Rebbe. It wasn't the latest Tosher Rebbe's your side. Yesterday was the Tosher Rebbe's, our Tosher Rebbe. I mean, it was different. Like 10 years ago, it was his grandfather's Yosy, Rebbe Elimelech from Tosh. So the story goes, there was a fellow who was struggling terribly. He was having financial problems, and he had to marry his kids. He was in bad shape. He was coming to the Rebbe to cry to the Rebbe should help him. And he's waiting there online, waiting many, many hours. And all of a sudden, this wealthy guy walks in. How did they know? Because he had a fancy watch, couplings, and he had cologne. And the Gabba whisks him right in. And he got very, very upset. He was very upset. And the Rebbe had called for this guy first. The Gabba didn't do it on his own. The Rebbe said, I want to speak to that guy first. So here, this Chuzah was so upset. How do you do something like that? Like, because I'm poor, I'm a second-class citizen. He was very, very upset. He was very frustrated. And what happened was, he goes into the Rebbe and he cries out to the Rebbe. He's not gonna call out the Rebbe on it. You have there's a limit to what you can say. And the Rebbe gave him an envelope, and he puts the envelope in his pocket, and he needed a ride back to Montreal because he didn't have a car. He snorted right here. He needed a snore right back. So he saw that wealthy guy who got here before him. He was the Gaboyim were sucking up to him. He was giving them all our tips, and he asked him, "Are you headed back to Montreal? Can I have a ride?" He said, "Sure." So they're sitting in the car, and on the way back, and the Gvir, he must have shifted that envelope in a different pocket. So the Gvir said, "Where did you get that from?" He said, "The Rebbe gave it to me." He said, "Are you kidding me? Do you know how much is in there?" He said, "No, it's a sealed envelope." So he looks at it. He said, "I cannot believe it. I gave this money to the Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't even open the envelope. He doesn't know what's in there, and he just gave it to you." So it turned out there was like $35,000 in there. And he said, like, I'm so upset here. I gave him $35,000, and he doesn't even know that I gave him $35,000. But then the Yitzchak, why the Rebbe Bedafke wanted the Gvir to go first, because the Rebbe needed money to give him. So everything has a proper set order. But my favorite story with the Tosh Rebbe is that Rabbi Shemai that even Winsberg likes. A guy was crying to the Rebbe about his terrible lot in life, how he's suffering, it's not fair, and he doesn't want Hashem so mean to him. So the Rebbe invited him, instead of sitting across the table, to sit right near him. He said, that morning, he's talking to him and crying. Meanwhile, the Rebbe brought the Rebbe in a boiling hot tea. The Rebbe's like drinking it, and all of a sudden the Rebbe shakes and he spills the hot tea on the guy. The guy goes, "Oh, ouch!" Right? But he didn't overreact. He just, he startled. As the guy was leaving, he asks him, how come you weren't all concerned that I spilled the tea on you? Like, how come you weren't upset? Like, I spilled it right on you. Like, why didn't you say anything? Like, why didn't you ask me, Rebbe, why are you spilling hot tea on me? So he said, I figured if the Rebbe is spilling tea on me, there's probably a hoichem, achshavus, big tekunim that the Rebbe was doing. So the Tosher Rebbe says, so little Tosher Rebbe spills tea on you, you think there's big cheshbonis. But the Rebbeinu Shalom, what he's putting you through, that you think is some type of mistake, let me tell you, there's a cheshbon for it. I'm not sure if that made him feel good, but what's that?
Everything else.
So that's another word in that same pasuk that we are in the middle of analyzing. It's bad enough that if you have a die in Russia, they unjustly give money from A to B, unlawfully. Now they force me to have to play with nature to make this money get back to the original Bible. I never checked our sound, so I'm not sure if I can hear anybody. Let me just do a quick sound check. I have it sound. He's talking more about it. That's the next clause in the pasuk. If there's something that's too hard for you, Moshe instructed the Dayanim, you could come to me. And let's just look at the exact words he used. Takrivun elai ushmativ. Amr Rab Chanina v'Temi Rab Yoshia al dovers and nenash Moshe. Moshe was punished for this. He sounded a little bit cocky, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, "Oh, you know everything. Anything that they need to ask you, they should come to you. I'm going to show that everybody that you yourself forgot a halach." Shenema v'Yakriv Moshe mishpatan lofnei Hashem, and this was the story when the Bnei Tzlafchad. It's a reminder of Bava Basra again. When the Bnei Tzlafchad came to Moshe Rabbeinu to complain that they didn't have a brother, Lama Nigara, Moshe didn't know what to do. And Moshe had to reach out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he forgot halacha. So you're going to tell Klal Yisrael anything you need, you come to me? And Hashem made it that Moshe should forget. Why are you saying that Moshe did something wrong? He didn't say, if you don't know, and I will tell you, which you might consider not so humble. The word that he used was ushmativ ksiv, meaning, and we will hear it together, meaning igamirna, gamirna. If the Rebbeinu Shalom already taught this to me, okay, so then I'll teach you. V'loi azelna v'gamirna, we'll go learn it. If I learned it, I learned it. If not, I'll go learn it. So that was very humble. Not I know everything. If it's something that I know, I'll tell you. If it's something that I don't know, I'll go learn it. So why would that have been a taina? Moshe didn't do anything wrong. And the reason why he lost out on being able to present to Klal Yisrael the halacha with the Bnei Tzlafchad is because of their schos. Really, the parsha of Nachlois should have been written and prompted through Moshe Rabbeinu. They were zoicha because they had a tremendous shukah to have part of Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, v'nichtav al yodam, the parsha was written to them. The Mekoshes Eitzim was a story where somebody was Machal Shabbos and he had to be killed. And again, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what to do with him. He had to reach out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everybody saw Moshe didn't know. Really, Moshe should have been the one who introduced this halacha to Klal Yisrael. Ella shenischayiv Mekoshes. Since the Mekoshes was nischayiv, he did an aveira. V'nichtav al yodoi, it was written through him l'lamdecha to teach us. Shemegalgal n'chayv al yidei chayiv v'tzchus al yidei zakai. Sad halachas, difficult halachas, are brought to us by Rishoyim, Chayiv, and good halachas, hilchos of Nachlois, are brought to us, sponsored by the Bnei Tzlafchad. This is the subject of a lot of controversy, because in fact, was Tzlafchad a Chayiv? Was he a bad guy? We know that there's a Shita, the Marsha says, somewhere in Sanhedrin, we had Bava Basra as well, that the Mekoshes was doing whatever he did l'shem shemayim. After the Egel, after the Meraglim, Klal Yisrael were so forlorn, they thought they were not going to Israel anymore. They thought the Torah was no longer relevant. So the Mekoshes wanted to demonstrate that the Torah is so very much relevant. And if someone's going to be Mechal Shabbos, he will still get a chiv of skila. So he B'davka did it to teach, to use it as a teaching moment for Klal Yisrael. So Oibazoi, the Marsha is going to ask later on in Sanhedrin, come to us, he did the Mekoshes not because he needed the wood that he was cutting. He was trying to teach people a lesson. So isn't that called a malacha? She'eina tzricha l'gufa? Someone did a malacha, but you don't need the malacha for what it itself is. You need it for a side benefit. You need it for a side effect of that malacha. So if that's the case, he should never have been mechuyev mis in the first place. So the Marsha says ein chanami. But going back to what we learned yesterday, ein lach ledayin alamat she'eina v'royos. The dayin sees that this seed was Mekoshes. He doesn't have to cheshbon, he's only doing it to teach people. And therefore, he was Mechuyev Misa, but he was a tzaddik, he was a good guy. And therefore, it would not fit into the way this Gemara learns. All right, there's a story in Shabbos where there's a story, well, before I tell you about the story in Shabbos, the second Gemara, I don't remember where it is, but the story is, they were discussing, I think it is in Sanhedrin later. They were discussing who was the Mekoshes Eitzim. The Gemara discusses, and Rabbi Kiva says that the Mekoshes Eitzim was Tzlafchad. So the other Tanoim told him, "Mimana shech, you're in trouble, because if you're right, it was Tzlafchad. But Hashem didn't want to reveal that because it wasn't told to us. It was supposed to remain concealed, and you revealed a side of Torah that you should not have revealed. And if you're wrong, then you're still Moshe Shemer. So there was a time on him. The third Gemara we learned, I think it was in Shabbos, where once upon a time there was a fellow who noticed a breach in the wall of his field on Shabbos, and he decided that he wants to fix it on Shabbos, which would have been a malacha. And then he stopped and he had a second thought and said, I'm not going to do it. And in that schus, the Gemara tells us that a tzlov plant grew up there, a single tzlov plant. That's tzlov chad, right? A single tzlov grew there. Now, the tzlov plant that we learned in the Gemara, it was an unbelievable plant. Every part of it produced its stems, its fruits, its branches. It was a phenomenal plant, very strong. It brought wealth to anybody who had such a tree. And that tree grew up in that hole. That this gentleman became a very wealthy guy. So the Kabbalah Sforim say, I don't look up Kabbalah Sforim. I look up the Mesivta who quotes Kabbalah Sforim. The Mesivta quotes from the Kabbalah Sforim that they say that this person was a Gidul Tzlachod, and with that machshava not to fix his fence, he was masakin the act of Makoshish Eitzim that he did, even though he did it L'Shem Shemayim. And the kicker of the whole binyan that the Mesivta writes over there is that the discussion in the Gemara about Tzlachod was discussing what's the strongest, toughest plant out there. And the Gemara says the toughest and strongest plant out there is the tzlaf tree. And the Gemara is discussing different reasons why it's such a tough tree. But the Mesivta, he read down from this Kabbalah, said, why was the tzlaf a tough tree? Because this tzlaf chod, the single tzlaf tree, what did it do? It revealed a side of Torah that Rabbi Kiva was attacked for. It revealed indirectly that tzlaf chod was in fact the Makoshish Eitzim. That's a tough tree that's not afraid to go against the grain and to reveal such a secret. Okay, so it's not so possible that tzlaf chod was a bad guy, or that the Makoshish was a bad guy. He could have been a very good guy. Zogti Gemara weiter. Tzivit says, "Vatzava es shavtechem." So let's have a look at this pasuk.
One of the main things of the tree is its fruits. Look, you have such good fruits. You have such good. Here it's
right. Yeah. Vatzava es shavtechem ve'eisahi loimar. I was mitzvah es shavtem shmoya ben achechem. If you remember, yesterday we learned from shmoya ben achechem that a dayan cannot listen to one baldin before the other, and one baldin may not present his evidence before the other. And there we learned means that a dayan has to be careful to be very precise in separating things. The bayis and the aliyah, he can't say you take the bayis, you take the aliyah. He has to figure out the value and make equalization payments. And the same thing with ben geroi, which is talking about the tools of the house, like a tana and a chirayim. So the Gemara wants to dash it further. Uksivit says, Vatzava eschem be'esahi. So the next pasuk is Vatzava eschem be'esahi eskalat vorm asher taser. So first of Vatzava shavtechem and then Vatzava eschem. I'm speaking directly to Klal Yisrael. So first I'm telling the shaytim you need to teach Klal Yisrael the mitzvahs, and then I'm telling Klal Yisrael you need to keep the mitzvahs. So for the Gemara, why do you need both? One HaKadosh Baruch Hu already told Moshe to be mitzvah the shaytim to teach Klal Yisrael. Why do we have to be mitzvah them directly? You know what? We were being mitzvah the tzibur, not halachas. That went through the shaytim. But as har the tzibur, shetei emais dayin aleim. The vatzava eschem is to listen to your dayanim, respect your dayanim. That was the mitzvah. It's almost like a mitzvah deraisa to respect dayanim. As har the dayin, what was vatzava shavtechem? What was included in the ashara that Moshe was telling the shaytim? That is a yisboil tzibur. They have to tolerate the tzibur. Sometimes it's not fun answering questions. Sometimes there might be questions that they don't think are important. But the dayan has to give respect to every yid who comes to petition him. At kama, up until what point? Reb Chanan v'teim Reb Shapsoi kasher yisa ha'oimen es hayonik. Like a little child, if they ask you why the sky is blue, you have to answer that too. You have to answer all these questions. Now it's clicking to me. Remember, somebody wanted to make Beis Hillel nervous, and he was asking him like weird questions. Why are Africans' feet wide, and why are these people's nostrils big? Because he made a bet with somebody that he'd be able to get Beis Hillel to lose his temper. And while Beis Hillel was taking his bath for Shabbos, he kept on interrupting him with a foolish question. And after Basil stayed calm and answered them properly each time, he said, "Ah, you messed me up. I lost $400 on you because I made a bet that I would be able to make you angry. But I'll call upon him. A dying has to always be calm and patient with any petitioner." So now it's not so geschmack because I used to think when I went to a dying to ask a shayla, he was so macabre me because he liked me. He's probably biting his teeth and biting his tongue that I'm driving him crazy, but he has to be nice. Okay, for Valm. It says, Ki ata savoy. So let's see what it says in the whole pasuk. Moshe told Yeshua, Chazak ve'emotz. Why? Ki ata savoy es ha'amazeh el haaretz. Savoy has a connotation that you will be amongst them, going together with them to Eretz Yisrael. Asher nishba Hashem lavoisam laseis lahem v'ata tanchilana oisam, and you're going to help them take it over. Then we have another tzivui, not much longer later, a couple of psukim later. V'yitzaves Yeshua benun v'yomer chazak ve'emotz ki ata savi. Savi means you're the leader, not you're amongst them, working together with them. Rather, you're the boss. Kiat asavi es b'nei Yisrael el haaretz asher nishbati lahem v'anoichi eya imach, and I will be with you. So, Zok Gemara, what is it? Ksiv ata savoy, kiat asavoy, ksiv kiat asavi. Am Rabbi Yochanan, ata savoy was Moshe Rabbeinu talking. Ata savi was the Rebbeinu Shalom. So Am Rabbi Yochanan, Amalei Moshe liYeshua. Moshe told Yeshua, you have to be somewhat diplomatic. Ata v'azekeinim shebedori moem. You're going to work in conjunction with the leaders of Klal Yisrael. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Yeshua, you got to be much tougher than that. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, toil makol. Take a stick, you're the boss. The hach al kot kodam, and hit him. In other words, you need to enforce your power. Dabar echad lador, only one ruler per generation. Vein shnei dabar in lador. You need to be tough, and you need to enforce your power. So I guess it's sort of a blend. You need to enforce your power, but you have to know. You got to know when to hold him, know when to fold him. You have to know how to be a proper leader, but you need to know that you need to sometimes enforce your strength. Then we learned Zimun b'shloisha. Zimun is 3 people required. Frek Gemara, my Zimun, Ilema Birchas Zimun. Right. The first thing that comes to our mind when we hear Zimun b'shloisha is you need 3 people to bench. Vatanya, but we learned Zimun u Birchas Zimun b'shloisha. So obviously Birchas Zimun is benching. Zimun is obviously something else. B'chitema, it's still the same thing. But Pirusha Kamafarish, my Zimun, Birchas Zimun, and the b'shloisha. But we have a brisa that makes them 2 separate things. Vatanya Zimun b'shloisha, item number 1. Item number 2, Birchas Zimun b'shloisha. So clearly Zimun must be referring to something else. Elamai Zimun azmuni ledin. When you're inviting someone to din. So when the Shliach Bezin approaches the Baldin that's being summoned, he has to say, all of these 3 dayanim are being mazmin yuladin. He can't just say that one of the 3 dayanim are being mazmin yuladin. Hani betlasa dayani, the Yosy. There's a sitting of 3 dayanim, v'azul shlicha de vedina, and the Shliach Bezin who wants to summon one of the Baladin, the Yomer, and he says, Mipumah dachat. He only quotes one of the dayanim. Rab Shlomo Miller wants to speak to you, but you didn't mention the other 2 dayanim. Loy Omar Klum. That's not a proper summons. Ad Omar Mishmei de Kulu. Until you say these 3 dayanim, they're being mazmin yuladin. But Hanimili below Yom Dedina. That's if it's not a regular day where Bezdin sits, as Rashi tells us on a Monday or a Thursday. If it's a regularly scheduled day in Bezdin, less lamba, then even one Shliach Bezdin must be adhered to when he summons somebody to a din. So we're learning the different types of payments that the Mishnah lists off require 3 dayanim. Shalolach le Rab Nachman bar Rav Chisda le Rab Nachman bar Yaakov. Yilamdenu Rabbeinu, dina knossos bekam. How many dayanim do you need to paskin dina knossos? Frek the Gemara, my kamaboyle. It's a mefursha Mishnah. Hanant dan b'shloisha. Elo, you know what a shaila was? We said by dina maminus hayochid mumcha could paskin. What about on dina knossos? Can a yochid mumcha paskin? Elo yochid mumcha kamaboyle. That is really the shaila. Doin dina knossos oiloi. Can a yochid mumcha paskin on dina knossos? Yes or no? Amarle tinitua. We know that as well from our Mishnah. Tashluma kefel, but tashluma arba v'chamisha b'shloisha. So again, you see, you need 3 dayanim. You can't do it with a yochid mumcha. My shloisha, what does the Mishnah mean when the Mishnah says that these two dine knossos require shloisha? If it's shloisha joitos, that cannot be. Because your grandfather said, Mishmei de Rav in the name of Rav, afilu asara the hein hedyoitos psulum dine knossos. Even a bezin of 10, but they're hedyoitos, they're not mumchoyim in choshem mishpat, they cannot pass dine knossos. Ella mumchin, it must be 10. And you need to have at least 3. Become a shloisha. So you see, you need 3 mumchin. 1 yochid mumcha would not be adequate to pass dinei knossos. And remember, we said because it could lead to dinei misa if it turns out that there's edim that this woman was noyif as a neshishish. Frank the Gemara, v'chiyesh boy dinei nefashos my have. So if it morphs into din nefashos, why is that such a big deal? Why don't you just bring the extra dayanim at that point? Why do you need to from the beginning bring 23 dayanim? Start off with 3. Amarula b'choshishin lalas kamivli. Now this sugya is a subject of a massive machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. As you can see, there's a long Tosfos right over here, Moshe Shemer on the Aleph, and there's a long Tosfos on the base, because Tosfos has a different pshat in the sugya than Rashi does. But this is how Rashi learns. Rashi learns the reason why you need 23 from the beginning is because of choshishin lalaz. So we're scratching our head. What is this laz that we're choshishin for? Rab Meir Sover ain't choshishin lalaz. Rabban Sover choshishin lalaz. So let's have a look at Rashi to see what this means. Zok Tehilga Rashi. Rab Meir Sover ain't choshishin lalaz. What is the concern we have? Ein choshishin shema kishiyavoyu levezdin, when they come to Bezdin to have this discussion of 3 about whether or not he has to pay his ksuba. I apologize. I think I skipped a very, very important Rashi. So I want to go back 2 Rashis earlier. Hamochi Shemra. What is Hamochi Shemra? It means a husband goes to the father of the girl he just married and he claims Loi Matzasi Levitcha Psula. Your daughter wasn't a psula. And therefore what? Therefore, his intent, the dinim ominous of 3 that we're discussing, between 3 or 23, it was all prompted by a husband who tells the father, I want to keep her, but I don't want to pay her ksuba of Mosayim, I only want to pay ksuba of a ba'ula. But maybe Adam she's into tachta. He's not bringing Adam that she was mizana. He's not looking to kill her. He's just looking to say, I don't know what happened, but I do know that when I was boiler, she was not a basula, she was a ba'ula. Therefore, I'm only paying ksuba of 100. The anafashis kasi, if his original tiny was coming with Aiden to Bezin that could say Adis that his wife was mizana while she was in Arusa, they don't have a minimum shloisha. So the dinei mominus that we're talking about, which might morph into dinei nefashis, is when the husband is just saying, I don't want to pay the Mosai the Ksuba, I only want to say Mona. So what's the problem of Choshin Alas? Rav Meir Savar ain't Choshin Alas. Ain't Choshin Shema Kishi Avoyu Bezin. Once the husband goes to Bezin to claim she was a Bu'ula, it's going to create a whole tumult. And once it creates a tumult, there might be Aiden that saw something that they're going to come. So some they wouldn't have come to Bezin. But since he created this whole tumult, now Aiden might come. Aiden might hear about this tumult, and they might say, hey, you know what? We saw something. We have to say something, right? It doesn't say see something, say something, right? So, Ein Choshin Shema Kishivoy LeBezin, V'yotza Koil, Yishmu Adim will hear, V'yavoyu V'yidu Shizin Tachtov. And they'll come and say, Edus, in fact, that she's Chayv Misa. When the husband came to Bezin, he was innocent. He just knew that she wasn't a Ba'ula, but he didn't know that she was in Tachtov. And now, V'tiboich of Gimel, now you're going to need 23 Dayanim there. The Shema Yavoi, they did the Fashis. This Baal coming to make a financial claim might create a tumult that'll attract Adam that will come and now say that she's Chayv Misa. For Rabban Sarich you're worried about that. And therefore, you should start with 23. So the kasha that I wanted Duvi to ask was, what's the Lashon Choshish in Lalaz? Choshish in Lalaz means you're Choshish that something wrongfully bad will come out about somebody. There's no Laz here. He came and claimed she was a Bu'ula. It's going to create a buzz, and that's going to bring Adam to actually testify that she's Chayv Misa. Where's the laws involved? Laz normally means that people are going to say something's bad. Something bad happened, someone's a crook here, right? So that's Toshus Akasha. The way Rashi, it's one of many Toshus Akashas. But one of Toshus Akasha is, that's not Laz. So Toshus ends up learning, and I'm not going to get into the full Toshus, Toshus ends up learning that the Dinim Moments that we're talking about here is not the husband's coming to say, I don't want to pay the Messiah of Tshuba. It's for carrot. A husband's never to say she's a Ba'ula without any din. You know why? Because there's a chazaka after no one's paying for a big, beautiful simcha, and then he's going to want to ruin it. Right? A wedding costs $100,000, and now he's going to throw it all in the garbage. No one's going to do that. So the guy says she's a bula, he has an amonis. And now what's happening is the father is coming to attack him, and the father's coming to mount him that I want a full 200. That's how Tosfos looks.
Well, not every wedding. Not every wedding is one of those big splashy weddings. It
But
could have
even
been
a small wedding is expensive. Everything is expensive.
I was at a wedding that only 4 people attended. Okay, the chas and the kala, and the Mesader Kedushin and myself.
So who are the Edom?
The Mesader Kedushin and myself.
Oh, you were the Edom, and himself.
Yeah.
Oh wow. He was that embarrassed with
okay,
her.
so that's an extreme case.
Yeah.
But there are cases where people just decide they want to get married, they do it quickly and chuck, and that's it.
Right, but the norm is that a person wouldn't waste money on a suda if he wanted to divorce her. So there were many times the Chushmatz Eileen Kuf Sloim Sha'af Toivea Lebal. I'm sorry? Right,
After
so
the
father claims that it was Moshe Shemer. The father claims that you made up a story about my daughter, and now he wants the 100 shkolim of kanas. And the Choshen Laz, meaning Hanu Laz had the Yonim, going to Havia Baal Edom, the Baal brought Edom Shizinsa, and then they were Makish to Edom. So now the father, the husband brought fake Edom because they were Hutkashu. So now he's Mukhayv to pay 100 kanas. So there, if you need to have 23 right away, because if you only have 3, we're afraid that afterwards they'll bring Edom Shazinsa, and then they'll have to go to 23, and it'll make the first set of Edom or the first Bezdin look bad. So again, Tosfos has a longer, complicated pshat, but we're sticking to Rashi that the dinim mominus here is the husband not wanting to pay ksuba, and it's going to create a buzz, and Edom might come, and then it'll become a dinim nefashis issue, and therefore you need to have 23 from the beginning. Rav Meir Sover Ein Choshen Laz. You could start with 3. Rabbon Sover Choshen Laz. Rav Amar Hula Amal Laz Lashishim. Everybody else were not concerned that it's going to morph into a dinim mominus, into a dinim nefashis, and as Rashi says, ve'im tchilas tviyata shel Baal loy ba lidoin al pi Edom ela al yidei atzma yolof sidik subasa. There, everybody agree it could be 3. But the machlokes in our Mishnah, where the Rabbon say need 23, is a unique one-off case. Are you choshed for the covenant of the first 3 dayanim? What do you mean? They started, for whatever reason, they started with dinei nefashos. That's what the Bezdin started with. Why? Because the Baal's original intention was to bring Edom that this woman is Chayv Misa. So they convened the Bezdin of 23. And then whatever it is, it fell apart. They didn't paskin a Misa. The Ivder and the halacha was paskin that she's not Chayv Misa. She was exonerated. And now the Bezdin was going away. But Amalu, and he said, you know what, if you're here anyway, Dainu li mi adina mominis. At least sit here so that we can discuss if I have to pay her ksuba. So the question is, do you make all 23 stay there, or could you do it only with 3? As the bottom Rashi says, let's leave this bottom Rashi because there's some other good information in it. I couldn't prove with Edom that my wife is Chayv Misa, but at least Donu li mias b'shloisha. Have 3 of you remain here so that we could continue on the Dinei Mominus claim that I have. Because even though I don't have Edom that she was Mazana, by me merely claiming that she was Mazana, I should be believed. The Kaimalon Chachamim, Tiknu lem levnois Yisrael b'tzula masayim l'manamana. V'im heminu lafsida al piv. V'heim heminu lafsida al piv. The same Rabbanan who were geyser that you have to give a b'tzula meya masayim. They said that if the husband himself claims without any prior whatsoever that she's not a basula, we'll believe him and he won't have to give her masayim. Why? Chazaka ein adam tereach basuda mafsida. No one's going to be matriach to make a big fancy wedding and mess it all up. So therefore, now how many people do we need to convene? Rav Meir said, let 20 go home, keep 3 here just to paskin on the din of whether or not he has to pay her masayim. Let me finish. Then we're not worried to the cover of Rishonim that we don't want them as part of the best. And therefore, once they started, we have them stay for the din of also, because it almost makes it look like we don't trust you with this. You go, we'll just keep 3 here. And that's all machlokes. Are we worried about respect for the Bezdin and therefore have them all remain until we finish the whole issue, even the din of or no, we only need 3, and there'll be no embarrassment or discomfort to the 20 Dayanim that get dismissed. We then? Yeah, how else would you know?
Right. So what's the point of if you wouldn't spend money for the wedding? The wedding's done already. You already spent the money for the wedding.
So you ask. So we'll have to learn the Gemara and Shuvos exactly how that Taina works. Yeah.
What is the time?
But he's saying that she wasn't a basula, she was a bula. So maybe he's saying he should not bear tshuva at all. Maybe he doesn't want to stay married to her. What? Because he no one if it's not true, let's say she's betzim a basula, right? Why would he mess up his whole life by claiming now she's a bula and mess up his marriage? Okay, so he spent all that money for a wedding. It means he never intended to defraud her. When he made the Suda, he really wanted her. He really wanted to marry her. So if he's bringing up now that she's a bula, we'll believe him. We won't say he was always a trick. He was going to fool her. He was going to claim that she was a bula later. Because no one does that. No one's going to go make a whole chasna to pull such a fraud on this woman. Yeah. Okay. So to Gemara weiter. Meisvei. The Chachamim Oimrim. Now it's going to get a little bit more complicated. Meisvei. The Chachamim Oimrim. The Chachamim said, it depends. Tavu mamain b'shloisha, tavu nefasha is be'eshem b'shloisha. So let's just quickly do an inventory. We have 2 pshatim in why there's a machlokes if you need 3 or 23, right? The first pshat was a pshat of Rava, and the pshat of Rava was the reason why we need 23 is because we're afraid it will create a buzz, right? And therefore, since it will create a buzz, we should start right away with 23 because otherwise it might morph into a din of foshes, and we won't have the Adam there. We won't have the Bezin there. And the second pshat was the pshat of Rava. I'm sorry. The first pshat was Ula. Ula said it's because of the buzz. Rava said no. It's a very unique case where it would be relevant, and that is when he originally came to condemn her to death with Adam, and Adam didn't work out. The whole question is could we let those Dayanim lead for the din in this portion? Right? So the problem here is we have over here the Chachamim saying Tavu Mamoin b'shloisha, Tavu nefashos be'eshem b'shloisha. How are you going to understand this? Bishlam Rava, according to Rava, it makes sense because Rava says what determines the bezin, what the original case was about. So Tavu Mamoin Tchila, if when he originally came he was only coming to say I don't want to pay the ksuba, then b'shloisha you only need shloisha. Because everybody agrees you're not choshesh lalaz. Everybody holds if you start off with a case of dinamamnis, start up with 3. But tavu nefashos tchila, which was the case of our Mishnah, that you need 23. That's because when he originally came, he came with Adam. He wanted to condemn her to death. So then tavu nefashos tchila, afilu mammon be'eshem shloisha. Even the mammon, you keep the full bezin there of 23. Right? That's what we said on the Manalef, according to Rava's pshat. Elalu Ula, who says you always need 23, even from the beginning, even if you started with Mamanis, because it could possibly morph into a din of Fashas, kasher. How do you explain the Chachamim who say Tavu Maman b'shloisha? The way Ula understood it, even Tavu Maman should be with 23, because it might morph into a case of din of Fashas. Amarava is a good kasha, but don't worry about it. Ani, the Arisha Bechabura, me and the Arisha Bechabura, Rava was very complimentary to someone who was a big Kamachochem. Targimna, we explained it, we answered this kasha that it shouldn't be Shver and Ula. Who is the Arisha B'Chabura? Manu Rab Chia Bar Avin. And what do we say? Shehevi habal edim shezinsa. The Baal brought edim that she was mezana. Behavior of edim, and then the father brought edim vezimum and was mazim the edim that the Baal brought. Vezimum le'edei Baal. So and that already happened in the past. So now, Baal ligvois mamoin mi Baal. If the father is now coming to mon the moiti shemra from the husband, bishloisha, he only has to bring 3 edim because it's only a discussion of dinim omnis. Ubamakim nefashos, but if it's makim nefashos, it's be'esrim bishloisha. Zok Rashi, very beautiful. B'makim dikin nefashos. Why would there be nefashos here? Kloimer, if there's a chash that there might be din nefashos here, to go in b'tchilas hadin, like when they're originally going to din, afilu ein loy edim, even if the husband is not coming with edim, he's just coming to claim mominus as ula paskins, yesh lochos shema yishmu v'yavoyed. So therefore, eshlev v'shloisha boy. So Zokt Rashi and Zokt Rava, according to Rashi, that when did the Chum say Tavu Moment B'Shloisha? That's if it's already past the point. The Eidim are Muzam already. So now we're not worried anymore about it morphing into Dinei Nefashos, because we already were Mazam Eidim that we're talking about her being Mezana. Now it's merely the father of the girl monning the husband in Bezin for the Moiti Shemer. But if we rewind to the beginning of the case, where the husband's coming to condemn his wife, whether or not he has Edom or not, whether or not he plans to make a claim of a Chiyav Misa, or merely a claim of a Mammon that he doesn't want to pay the full Ksuba, we have to start off with 23 because of Ula's concern that it could morph into a Din Nefashos. Beautiful. That was Rava's Pshat to explain this Brisa according to Ula. But Abai had a different Pshat. Abai Amar, no, the Chula Alma Chashin and Lalaz. Maybe everyone is Chashish Lalaz. So Abaya is a third answer to our original machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim, right? Ula said it's a machlokes of Chashin Lalaz. Rava said nobody's Chashish Lalaz. Abaya wants to say everybody is Chashish Lalaz. And the whole discussion here is because of cover of the first Bezdin, and the devil is in the details. Going to Astru Bostam. What happened is they didn't give her a proper hasra on this nus. So look, Zokt Rashi, Abai Amar, Ibishaloi Hevi Edim. Well, I'll agree that if it was never originally a Dinei Nefashos case, meaning when the husband came, he didn't come with Edim. He was just coming to demand his ksuba. There, the Chula Alma Choshin Alaz. There, for sure, you need to start off with 23 because it could morph into a Dini Nefashos case. Uvina Esrim Shloisha Dilma Shama Sadi Basu. Since you have to start off with 23 because it might morph into a case of Dini Nefashos, Afilu Maman Be'esrim Shloisha, even if it ends up being only a discussion of the ksuba money, we'll keep this bezin of 23. Because we don't want to dismiss anybody because it doesn't look good if we dismiss something, if we dismiss them. The hacha beplukte the masnisin. What's the shaila in our Mishnah? Unique case. He came with Edom. The sulek lemechish. He brought Edom right away that she is Mukhayv Misa. Bahani Amri Ba'ape Tlasa, the Hisruba Misa Stam. And the Edom that he brought with him to Bezin says, we warned her that if she's Mizana, she's going to be Chayiv Misa. But we didn't tell her that as a Naira Hamurasa, the Misa that she was going to get would be Skila. Well, Yiskirula Skila Kidai Murasa. So they gave her a Hasra, but it wasn't a very detailed and specific Hasra. And there's a machloikis if that hasra counts. Rav Meir Sover su leka hacha dini nefashos. This is not called dini nefashos. You know why? Because without a hasra, you can't kill her. Without a specific hasra of what she will get for this offense, you can't kill her. And therefore, ubahani shloisha sagi l'meidin dini mamas taksuba. So if when the husband comes with Edom, the Edom only have a edus that they saw be mizana, but without a proper hasra, then you don't need 23, because this could never possibly morph into a din nefashos, because the Eidim don't have testimony that could possibly convict her. The chinami yuzmu, even if they're huzam, yishalom kesef, the most this could ever be is a case of din mominus. But for abundance overy, even the asru be misa, since they warned her to shulchav misa, even though they didn't tell her specifically what misa it is, it's considered din nefashos iko umiktala. And that's what the machlokes is, how precise and specific the hasra has to be. So let's see the Gemara back inside. Everybody holds that you are choishes, meaning if you just come for dinim mominus, we're afraid this could morph into dinim nefashos, but where we know it's a situation that, according to one sheet, that could never possibly ever morph into a dinim nefashos. Going to Asher Bastam, they didn't give her hasra specifying the type of misa. The high Tana, who, and it's going according to this Tana, the Tanya, the Shar Kol Chayve Misa Shabbatayra, besides a Mesis, who doesn't need hasra, a Mesis you can kill without hasra, all other type of Misas that the Bezdin gives, Ein Memisin Oisam Ella, the Eda, you need to have a proper Bezdin, the Edim, Vasra, and the Ad Sheyoidi Uhu Shochayev Misa Bevest. The Edim have to make hasra. If you do this, you will be Chayev Misa's Bezdin. That's what you need for a minimal hasra. But Rabbi Yehuda says you need even more. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ad Sheyoidi Uhu Be'eza Misa Hunered. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, where the hasra is not a valid hasra, unless they specifically told her you will get skila and bezdin, and they know they didn't say that, so now lechatchila this could never possibly be a case of din nefashos because they didn't give her the proper hasra. So there, in that case, we have in the Mishnah Machlokes between the 23 or 3. It's in the case where the Eidim didn't give a proper hasra. So according to Reb Meir, 3 is enough. Why? Because Reb Meir holds it was not a good hasra. This could never possibly lead to a case of din nefashos. While according to the Chachamim, there would be a good hasra, even though they didn't specify skila, and therefore this is a case of din nefashos, and it needs a bezdin of 23. Papa Amar, Hacha v'isha chaveira askinim. We're speaking about a woman who's a Talmid Chacham who knows exactly what offense she's doing, and she knows exactly what she would be liable to. And the Kamivili bepluged to Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda Barban. And the machlokes of Reb Meir and the Chum in our Mishnah, if you need 3 or 23, is a different machlokes. The machlokes of Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda and Rabban and the Tanya, Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda Omer, Chaver ein tzarich hasra. A Talmid Chacham who knows the halachas, you don't have to give him hasra. If he's Machal Shabbos, you can kill him without any hasra. Why? The whole reason why they have to give him an asra is we need to know, is this person chayiv because he did it b'mezid, or is he potter because he did it b'shoikid? That's the whole purpose of the asra. Therefore, if you know you're talking about somebody who knows what they're talking about, it would be good anyway. So therefore, in our Mishnah, the case was where they didn't give her asra because she knew better. If you hold you don't need a asra, then it has to be 23, because this is a case of din nefashos. If you hold she needs an asra, and no asra was given, this could never possibly be din nefashos. It could only be din mominus, and therefore 3 is enough. Rav Ashi Omar, Kagoyin, the Asru Bey Malchus, below Asru Bey Ktola. They warned her that she would get Malchus, and they didn't warn her that she would be Mufrid Misa, and we'll leave that for tomorrow, the details of that machlokes as to whether or not they could kill her because of that, and whether or not it needs a bezdin of 23 or 3. So what it does is this mamish defangs the whole machlokes Reb Meir and the Chachamim. It has nothing to do with the original shaila as to whether a case of much needs 3 or 23. Because it's saying everybody needs 23. This is a small shaila in a very specific case where it couldn't have worked out to a chiyuv misa. So it in a way, the Gemara does it often, that it limits a case in the Mishnah to a very unusual, non-typical case. But that's how the Gemara works. Okay, gewaltig.
Shkoyach.